Hello, I'm Jasia Cornwise, and welcome to the Freedom to Flourish Summit. I am absolutely delighted to introduce you to Angela Nichole, author and speaker, and the founder of I'm going to be like WELLTH Fusion, Wealth Fusion. It's a little pun. I love it. And she's a business and systems strategist as well. And she is an amazing human being. I had the chance to meet her in a business setting this year, and I just found her heart shining through. And I knew that she was someone I wanted to let you all meet and introduce you to, because it's so important for us to meet so many people and hear their stories and hear the breakthroughs they've had and why they're passionate about what they're doing and how they're living the life of their dreams. And I know Angela has something to share with us. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be interviewed today, and I'm super excited and nervous at the same time.
Oh, well, I love the excitement and the nervousness because whoever's watching, they're going to feel you and they're going to relate to that. Because the people who are watching the summit, they want to know what it takes to break through so that you can live a life that's flourishing. So I'm going to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're watching a breakthrough in live action because today I'm going to kind of dive into some parts that I've never shared publicly. So that's where the nervousness is coming in. And this
So
is the perfect
fighting for
time.
your courage. You're amazing. So let it be here. I think that's awesome. So Angela, just go ahead and maybe share a little bit about some of the defining moments of your beginnings, the challenges that you grew up with that you really had to face, the obstacles.
Okay, so my very first one I would say would be health because I was the sick baby. I was never able to really go outside in the winter time. Like my immune system was super fragile
Oh
all
boy.
the way to like in school, like in elementary school. I used to get teased because I wasn't able to go outside and play with kids all the time. So that would be my first obstacle,
Can I
which
ask
kind
you a
of
question about that? Did they know why it was at that time? Or was it just like you were sick all the time and no one knew why?
no one knew why. It was just always my immune system would always break, and it was usually more in the winter and the colder seasons,
Yeah.
and we never really figured out why. It was just something I had to deal with. I was like one of the homeschool kids before that thing was popular.
Yeah.
So,
Where did you grow up? What was your family like? What was it like living in that family and being sick?
um, they just, I mean, it was normal. That was my normal. They embraced it, you know, like we didn't understand why. I just stayed in the hospital a lot. Like my siblings never like made a difference or anything. But my dad really did a lot of mindset um, cultivating, if you would. And now, mind you, this is before all this stuff was like popular. So I had no idea that's what he was doing, but he was cultivating my mind because the body didn't work the way we was anticipating it to work. So I could control like the way I thought about it. And like we weren't able to say I can't, and just like no defeating mental um, conversations. So like he eliminated that from the start, which
Wow, so that was a real ally in your journey to
yeah,
really help you through. Your dad really made a difference for you. How was
absolutely.
it? I know that when we are bullied, or I mean, as someone who grew up, blind in my left eye, I got from every kid who was there, "What's wrong with your eye? There's something wrong with you. That's gross. Or you have an infection." So you just get these responses of "There's something really wrong with me," and that was my, beginnings too. So I recognize what it's like to like feel like people are saying there's something wrong with you. How do you think that impacted you?
I think my dad did a really good job on inoculating my mind. So I didn't really pay it much attention. And I was the next to last kid. So I was used to having the older siblings to kind of pushing you around. I think they kind of made me tough,
Mm.
if you would, because I was always like, having to stand up for myself.
Uh-huh.
And I think with the bullies, it kind of helped. Like I did shy away from it at the beginning, but then I lost my dad at 9. So that kind of like gave me a whole nother oomph factor because I didn't have him anymore.
Oh,
So
so sorry. At 9 years old?
at 9, yes.
Oh my goodness, what a shock. Was it a complete surprise?
Yes, it was a complete surprise. It was a bad car accident.
Oh,
Like no one, I went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, and disbelief. It wasn't until I saw my oldest brother crying that I knew that this was like they were telling the truth. Because I just thought, oh, you guys must have got divorced, or like you said this so that we would, like in my head, 9 year old, I was like, that couldn't be true. Like they lied so that we could deal with this better, or I don't know. That was just like, not that that was better, but
Oh my
that's
God.
where I went in my mind as a kid.
Yeah. How long did it take before you understood what that meant? And how did it impact you to lose your dad, who was the one person strengthening your mind and keeping you feeling good about yourself in that really strong way?
I did mind tricks. I would tell myself that he was gone on a business vacation. And for a long time, I thought, like that would kind of ease it. I think about 11, I realized that he really wasn't coming back. I went through suicidal thoughts at that moment, but then I realized, like, he would not have been happy with that situation. So I kind of promised myself, okay, we cannot go there. That's not where he would have wanted me to go. So just, I think, leaning back on the mindset that he had established early on, and not allowing myself to go like into these dark places, or, like naturally you have bad moments, you feel it. So our thing was to feel it for about 5 minutes and then let it go. So it was a constant repeat of, you fall into it, you get through it, and get out of it as quick as you can.
So that was a strategy he taught you in general about feeling. You feel it for 5 minutes and then you release it.
Yes.
That's incredible that you had that tool. And I really get that the shock just had you in disbelief. And I think children don't know how to integrate what is death. I mean, what does that
Mhm.
even mean? It's not even something you can conceptualize at that age. So it makes sense that it took a while to really feel what that meant. So after that, like, what were the next obstacles in your journey, and what did you use to kind of break through? What freedom did you need to find as you grew? Tell me a little more about that story.
Well, him passing, he left a substantial inheritance, which kind of, like, a little foreshadowing. It ended up kind of being my the cornerstone, if you would. So he was, like I said, he was always cultivating the mind, and I was always like ahead of the kids in class. So I would also be doing numbers and budgeting. So I ended up taking on a fascination for numbers. So when he passed, I was the one that had to take over the books. And at this point, I had no idea that this was not normal. It was just, once again, this was just the life, the hand that I was dealt. So I just dealt with it. So here I
Nine,
am.
9 years old, you were taking over the books.
Yes, at 9 years old, I was managing, like, he had left $1 million life insurance policy. So I was budgeting our personal household and my grandmother's household.
What?
And but it was like he set this up so that it was so much fun that I didn't realize that I was really doing like adult activities. Because it was always different games we played, and like he had unique ways of entertaining my mind. So
Man, oh my gosh, I would have loved to meet him. He sounds like it's almost like he was guided to get you set up, huh?
And I thought about that years later. I think it really hit me at about 28 that, oh my God, like he literally gave me all the seeds. And I really did go through life like seeking, like he gave me the seeds, but then I had to seek different leaders and events, teachers, and opportunities that cultivated it. And, like to pull the weeds out, meeting the different people. And like, but I went on this whole journey, and I realized about
Mhm.
14
Yeah. Oh, at 14, go ahead.
that I had a mandate, and it was to break the poverty bondage in our family, which I thought it was just the family. Then after college, I realized, met my high school sweetheart turned into, like, we went through college together, and then we ended up getting married. But he was like, no, this is bigger than just like your family. This is something that could be global. And we had created a nonprofit org for kids, helping them to find their passion. And then kids got a little bit difficult to work with. And I was like, had a couple episodes where some girls were like extremely disrespectful. I'm big on respect. And some of this younger generation are not. So I was like, I don't think the kids will be the route to go with this. So it ended up growing into women focused, and then let them go ahead and bring it back in to their own kids and cultivate their household, and then they can take it into the community.
What was the name of the nonprofit that you set up at that time?
At that time, it was called Junior CEOs Inc. because
Mhm.
we were incorporating and incubating kids to figure out what their passions were so that they wouldn't feel like they were ever working. So, and then we also inoculated personal development and financial literacy. So that's been a thread that has like gone throughout. It has evolved over the time, but it's always been the same: personal development and wealth.
And so how has that helped you transition in your world, and what obstacles have you had on that journey, from there?
The first one would have been my mom, watching her, like, because she was being taken advantage of
Oh,
financially, people coming in, like, expecting her to um, financially release them of whatever their issues and burdens were, or losses or whatever they were going through. They were coming in getting like large amounts of money. And she didn't understand the numbers. So she would just willingly, Angie, cut them a check. Angie, cut them a check. So, and I'm like, these numbers are like dwindling away. And so, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead. And so I did that. But then I watched the devastation once all the money was gone. All the friends and family, like, they disappeared. No one was there when she needed them. And that kind of really hit home to, like, first it was the health, now it's the money. Like, you were set for life. You could have done some things where you didn't have to worry about finances. So then as she was aging, like, I'm watching her like break down because she's having to take care of all these kids and then not have enough money. So now she's working these crazy hours, and then at this point, I'm realizing, this is kind of as I'm getting up to about 14, I'm realizing that there's so many kids left at home because their parents have to work, and some of them have to work two jobs. And I'm like, without this structure at home, like, what are these kids going to be like once they get adults? And I was just always future pacing, I guess, just always visionary, just thinking farther into the future than like was normal at that time. So watching her go through this kind of sparked that journey of like, how can you not have to do this? Because like once I remember we had moved from, we were in Indiana when I was born. We moved down to Little Rock, Arkansas, but on the trip we had got a flat tire. So it's two older boys, me, a little baby girl, and we're stuck on the side of the road. Like, no one was passing us, no one was coming to help us, no one was coming to save us. And that feeling of being powerless, and like I couldn't help, the boys didn't know what they were doing, like, because we lost dad before they were able to be taught these types of things. So we ended up was at the mercy of a pastor on a bus. They were, I don't know where that bus was taking that bus load of people to, but he stopped and helped us. But I remembered at that point, like, I never wanted to feel powerless, period. And like at the time, I didn't realize these were the things that were like the deep seated emotions that kind of came to pass later. And I don't want to spoil the questions that you may ask. So I don't want to jump ahead and tell too much too fast.
It's okay. I think it's good. Go ahead, because I think you're kind of lighting it. You're kind of, you've looked at some of the things we were going to talk about, and you're just telling the story. So, really what I want to know is like, what then did you have to break free from in order to live a life that was about flourishing and to find your passion from all these very difficult transitions and really stark circumstances that a lot of people would actually not get through. And I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who can relate to some of these circumstances. So, what did it take? And what tools did it take? Like, what was your breaking point? And then what was your rebirth?
So to do the first part, what it took was really identifying and understanding who I was. Like, because that was something that after my dad died, I'd started like dimming my light and always like not trying to call too much attention to myself. I become introverted. I was always in the more comfortable in the back than being in the spotlight. So, but recognizing my gifts, recognizing what it was that like there's things that I had that other people are going to need before they can go to their next part. Like being that key piece to kind of unlocking somebody's it factors. If I continue to play small, then other people that were connected to my destiny wouldn't like
I mean,
flourish.
that's what any kind of person who's been on a hero's journey and really becomes their own heroine or hero finds out, right? That we have to do it for everyone else. And yet not everyone makes that leap. You know, you talked about, gosh, there were times I had suicidal thoughts. It's interesting you became less visible because your father was the person who said you are worthy of being visible, and I'm going to show you how. And then suddenly it was taken away. That support wasn't there. So of course you shrunk and stepped back. And I'm sure that affected your mind, your body, your spirit. Um,
It
how
did.
brought that recognition that had you break free? Was there a moment? Was there
Yes, there was.
a crisis? What happened?
Yes. So, um, and this is leading up now. So, mind you, we had, and I say we because I was married the probably the majority of my adult life. Um, I got married early. Like I said, it was my college sweetheart. But so we had moved away from our hometown, moved to another city, and we had like expanded like our expenses, what we were going to need, the whole 9 yards. Things didn't go as we was planning them to go, so we had to reroute and go. We ended up going out west to where his sisters were. Like things didn't work the way they was supposed to out there either, but this was a stepping stone because I never wanted to go out west, and he had been asking me for like 18 years, let's go, let's go, let's go.
The breakdown kind of forced you. You didn't have a choice. You had to follow. That was the next step. Whether you
Yes,
like how well.
absolutely. So he was always supportive. So I was like, okay, let me support what he's doing. He's doing this for the bigger, for the greater good. So we go out there. We had just bought a brand new car. It had gotten to the point where like it hadn't been registered in our names yet. It was still in the um, whatever the company's name that we actually bought it from. They were like, okay, you left out of the town. We financed you for Indiana. You're now in California. Like, we don't know if you're going to be working, where the money's coming from, or any of that. So the financing fell. So they was like, send it back. My husband was a driver by profession. So we were like, okay, we're surrendering it. We let them know where it was at. Once they realized that it was really in California and we weren't just like pulling their legs, they were like, "Oh no, you're responsible for sending it back." And we were like, that just threw us for a loophole because it was super expensive to send it back, and they were wanting to file charges for grand theft auto.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
like, no, like that's your career. We can't let like we have to pay to send it back. Long story short, short story shorter, we started going through all of our savings because like he's not working now, and we're like digging into the internet trying to replace income. Mind you, we didn't land totally solid. We had went to where my sister-in-law told us to come. It wasn't what it was chopped up to be, so we ended up being homeless. So after coming back, like grabbing ourselves, and actually we was homeless for about it was about a month and a half or so. And when I'm saying homeless, it wasn't just like out in the streets homeless. We staying between his sister's houses, between two sisters' houses. So we ended up finding our own place, and it was at that moment that that big old like in your face type of thing. I felt like I had been taken out to the desert into this foreign land. Every time he looked for a job, is when they found out he didn't speak Spanish, he would end up not getting the job. I had shut down like a travel company. So I've left everything that I've been used to and knew from the last 15 years to like completely start over. It was ground zero. And it was at that moment, falling dead on my back, if you would, and looking up, I was prompted to go and journal. And when I went to journal, this is one of the devices that helped get me back into the groove of things because leading up to that, I went into for about 2 weeks about a depression. I wasn't doing any personal development, wasn't pouring in, wasn't connected to anybody. I had isolated myself basically. So like all the things had started pouring in, and I remember talking to both of my kids, and I was going back and forth, and I was just literally vomiting all this negativity, and they were giving it me back like my dad did. They were giving me back all the lessons that I had given them over the years, which is what pushed me to go like journals. Like, what were you doing when you were at your most successful? Like, because if you don't figure this out now, doing that look in the mirror, the boys are not going to do what you taught them to do, because here you are in your dark hour and you're not doing it, and you have the tools to do it and you're not doing it. And so I had to have that conversation, put my big girl panties on, and put the valuables back behind the locked in, cased in the jewelry where the valuables go. I had put myself on the clearance rack, if you would. I had started settling for less and just kind of shrinking again. So, but when I started journaling, the word butterfly just like kind of illuminated. Yes, and that's where the butterfly comes from. Yes. So, but then that had a when I journaled it out, it actually had a process, and it became my methodology, because that was the thing that I did following that process is what I did looking back, reflecting back every time I had a setback, every time I wanted a promotion, every time like something changed or we did a move or anything that was significant that altered, I went through this process.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that moment where it had gotten so dark that I needed to see it. And butterflies would pop up along the journey, and I never recognized them. So I was like, okay, I see, it's clear as day. I see what you're giving me, and I'm going to go ahead and use it. And that day, the butterfly methodology had appeared, and then I started going back and actually like doing the things and recognizing, hey, like this is exactly what like you'd be doing, and you can do them all together or you can do them individually, but you've always done these things. So that is how.
What I hear those things are in your life that kept you strong was the mindset, the
Mhm.
reminders to come into that gratitude, to come into your fullness, to not shrink, and to journal, to get words on paper, to look at what was successful, that you had a process you developed, and your kids. I love that. First, your dad taught it to you, and
Mhm.
and then he used his thing until you went into crisis, and then different things happen. Then your kid, you taught your kids it, and your kids then taught it back to you. So it's literally like an intergenerational um,
Yes.
tool that you've been using. I love that. I'm curious, have you ever found connection to breath work, dance, movement, and body work, nature? I mean, I love journaling as well. That's one of my grounding tools. Have you used any of those body-based tools, and how did your body and your mind work together or separately during this part of your journey?
Oh,
Because something else was kind of integrating both. So everyone I'm talking to, I'm like, so did you have a connecting point where you realized I need to care for my
yeah.
body and my emotions and my mind and my physicality?
Yes. So the journaling led to meditation, and meditation led to grounding, just like the barefoot grounding outdoors. And
Yeah.
then here more recently, I've embraced the breath work. And then I'm looking forward to the movement. I haven't now movement has been just, I don't know if it has been more challenging for me to make it a part of my lifestyle. So, but as I've embraced the others, now movement is the next thing that I'm looking
Oh, Angela,
for
we gotta
actually.
talk about that because I think I might have an amazing thing for you there. But that is, because I think a lot of people say that I don't, either they feel like they're not strong enough, not well enough, uncomfortable with their body, uncomfortable being seen moving. And so one of my passions is I've developed a program that's all about self-care and self-love and
Yeah.
use the body and movement and breath and grounding tools. But it requires like I teach people how to get in there and do that work in a fun way that they can do straight from their home and in like a daily way. Because what I hear is like you did the evolution from consciousness to awareness to embody breathing to getting more and more present. And I'm like, okay, here's the next step. So I
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
So will you
And
tell us a little bit? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Were you
no,
gonna
no,
say?
no. That's fine.
Okay. Well, you tell everyone now. So what are you up to? What has this led to? What's your flourishing joy now? What are you doing in the world that's making a difference and that you're excited about?
So I am leading the billionaires movement, and that's about embracing, having the woman to embrace herself as she is, and just kind of dig into that mindset. So that movement actually encompasses the butterfly in that framework. Yes. Love it. And it's got the like 5 pillars to it where it's acknowledging your mindset, your health, your wealth, your purpose, and your legacy. So they kind of all come together and it's parts of the wings and the body of the butterfly. But I'm getting that out through the billionaires movement. And it's building interest, leaving legacies, influencing our next adolescent, intentionally repeating empowered self success. So that's what the billionaires actually means. And the whole purpose of that is to get mom into a position where she's paying attention and taking care of her health and then her wealth so that she can leave a legacy that she's proud of. And so if we get mom under control, then she can take control, bring that back into the household, teach the kids, and then when the household is together, it can take it out to the community. And the vision is for it to impact 1 billion people.
I love it. So, what are ways like, well, okay, I want to ask you one question. So, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self anything that you wish you had fully known, what would it
To embrace my gifts faster instead of the self doubt, letting people around you, the environment around you dictate who you are, like because you feel it. And for me, it was always something bigger, always pulling and tugging, and I ignored it for so long. I wish I would have just embraced it a lot sooner, and then because I would have been able to impact a lot more people, a lot, like when you're working in that gift, you can do that impact thing a lot faster.
That's right.
That would be the thing.
Yeah.
Embrace
That you
yourself.
that you always really know that when you're little, you know something, but you might be afraid to do it or feel a little embarrassed. But it's like a passion, it's a love, it's a light that you feel to stick with that.
Yes. Yes. It's guiding you and it's accurate. So just kind of embrace it faster because sometimes it's bigger. And for me, it was never knowing how, like, and I was thinking I had to do it all by myself. So I was shy away from doing it. It was way bigger than I ever could have thought to, like, how can I even possibly impact 1 billion people? So that was like massive. But now I know that it's not just me impacting them directly. And that's when I recognized that it's impacting the woman one by one. She's impacting her family, and then they're taking it to the community. So it's a ripple effect. But I had to embrace who I am and like my gifts and just, own them because I'm a little weird sometimes. I'm very analytical and I was always made fun of and I had to embrace that. Like there was no mistakes made when that was my personality. So when I embraced it, everything kind of just started coming together.
I love what you just said that we all have a gift and they're different. We shouldn't envy someone else's gift. Our gift is exactly what we need and what we're supposed to bring through.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you'd like to share? What's a good way if people want to learn more about your work and how to get empowered with that butterfly method? How should they get in touch? There will be all the links under, but if you're going to give them one line right now, what would that be?
I'm on all social platforms as Billionaires Builder, and I'm doing a workshop coming up. If you go to the www wealth, the WELLTH fusion.com, they would be able to attend. I'm doing a free workshop. I plan on doing it at least 3 times this year anyway. And that would be like the perfect way. It's a 2-day event where they could start to like emerge into the transformation.
What a great opportunity. I'm just so grateful you were here. Thank you so much for the vulnerability to share publicly more about your story. I really love getting to hear it even more deeply than I knew. And you're amazing. So thank you for being.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome and amazing. I appreciate
You are
it.
so